So yeah, data centers we've been using for decades. We kind of need it for the internet, and we need it for training AI and stuff like that. But the costs outweigh the benefits, at least in terms of if you have one living in proximity to you. You definitely don't want to live near one. It can impact. All right. So, so a single data center, it consumes 5 million gallons of water per day just to cool it. And that's as much as a town of 50,000 people. And 80% of that water actually evaporates, and it goes and it actually rises the temperature of the area, like the entire radius of 3.6 degrees Fahrenheit to 16.4 degrees Fahrenheit. So that makes things really uncomfortable for residents. And then if you incorporate the fact that it pollutes the water table, they like to purport these, we have these closed loop systems, and a closed loop system says that all they do is they take in the water and then they reuse that water to cool the machines. But the truth is, it's not truly closed loop, and they do dump it, and it does pollute the water supply because they have to run anti-corrosives and biocides to prevent bacteria and algae growth in order to keep those cooling systems going and not produce all the sludge. But what they do is they end up dumping that sludge locally into the sewers and wherever they can, and that pollutes the local water table. So not only do we have temperatures rising, the water getting polluted that they do give back, and then not only are they also consuming that 5 million gallons or more just to cool, they're taking that water away from residents, and this actually can affect up to 200 people. A 200-mile radius of people, because the effect on the power grid is not properly offset by the solar that they often set up and the battery farms that they set up, and that effect it's the power bills rise because of that consumption. So power bills, water bills rise. All the water is contaminated for 10, 20 miles around. And then you also have noise pollution and noise pollution. If you're a resident that's nearby, you can hear the data centers within a mile. And as you get closer and closer, that 100 plus decibels can cause hearing damage, especially if most of the hearing damage is by hearing it constantly. So like you can drive by it and you don't get hearing damage, but if you hear it for more than 8 hours, you accumulate hearing damage. So like Andrea just said, jobs, most of the facilities are automated. So and I used to work for many cloud hosts, and they automate most of that stuff. I built some of those automations. So there's like 10 to 20 people on site, and sometimes there's literally nobody on site. The biggest facilities that even that might have people can have like 100 people, but that's because it's multi-purpose. It's not just a data center. But what they're building around here and what they're building all over the country by executive order, those are meant to be AI data centers for training, which are the worst of the worst. Because of the heat they produce, the pollution they produce, the completely automated, they don't produce the jobs. And then also there's tax abatements that many of these townships and counties and states are giving to them. So they're not even paying the taxes that they should be. So ultimately, they are a net negative for residents. Immediate impact in a 50-mile radius. Mike said, who owns the data centers? Yeah, those are the only people that benefit. So you've got the surveillance state that really wants to build these AI data centers. And then you also have the State Department and the Department of War that want to try to be number one in the AI race, and that's one reason they want to build these data centers. But more data centers does not actually make us better in AI. And the truth is, they can close off a lot of that compute to consumer use that we already have, and we have the most data centers in the world already. We have like 5,400 or something data centers in this country, and nobody else matches it, not even China. And because of that, we can close off compute to consumer use if there really is a threat of not being number one in AI. But ultimately, the goal is surveillance, and so processing, big data processing through AI. What they want to do is utilize these data centers to process all of our data and then extract those insights about us and further manipulate us and control us. So I think I covered most of the stuff there. So go ahead, Rich.
Some pretty heavy stuff, Richard.
Indeed.
What? Are you ready?
Yeah, if we could switch back to my first slide. Yeah. So, this is interesting because, I looked at this seemed pretty well-sourced article, and there's some disagreement about some, I think, basic facts regarding water usage. So, and this is, I don't know how to resolve that without really getting into the weeds and looking. I wrote down some of Johnny's sources. I'm going to look at them, and this article by Andy Maisley is the main thing I'm relying on. Let me first say that I'm not. I actually agree with Johnny on a lot of what he's saying. I think AI and the data centers are an environmental concern. However, I don't think the environmental concerns are the principal problem so much as some of the other things that he touched on, like their use. As with any technology, there is some potential for good use and some potential for harm. And when it's in the control of globalists like Bill Gates and Larry Ellison and people like that, you do have to be concerned about what they're using it for, not just the surveillance state, but also the military uses. I mean, they're already starting to use AI to select targets, things like that. And it seems like, the doomsday scenarios that we've seen in certain episodes of Black Mirror might be coming true. And I am very concerned about that. But focusing more narrowly on the environmental impacts, I thought pretty well sourced article by Andy Maisley took a almost completely different take. That the amount of water being used is not that great. Most of it is not evaporated. He has almost completely different statistics than the one that Johnny presented. So that's where there has to be a way to resolve that factual dispute. I'm not sure how, but he's basically saying that most of it is used, it's recirculated. And when you compare it to other uses, it's just not that great. He comes out that, that even with the expansion of AI that's projected by 2030, the water all American data centers will consume would be equivalent to about 8% of the water currently consumed by the U.S. golf industry. Now, the golf industry does pose some environmental threats. This doesn't let AI off the hook, but I think it helps put it into perspective that's, there are a lot of other industries that use a lot of water. And actually, if we go to the next slide, one of the biggest, of course, is agriculture. And the amount that's used for agriculture dwarfs anything. Are you able to advance the slide? There we go. Yeah, I mean, look at that. Now, obviously, we need to eat. Obviously we want water to be used for crops, but even looking at this, there are a lot of horribly inappropriate uses of water in agriculture. I'm thinking of California's Central Valley, for example, which was basically a desert. They used all this water from the Colorado River to irrigate almonds and other produce that shouldn't even be grown there. It's absurd, some of the ways that agriculture uses water, and the runoff from agriculture is actually a far greater environmental threat than the runoff you're going to get from data centers, or at least according to the analyses I've seen. So obviously, I think need to do some more homework on this and try to find out where the truth lies. Yeah. So we have to be wary of some of the scare stories we're getting in the corporate media. He gives, in this article, it's a very long article, highly recommend it, the one by Andy Maisley. He drills down on some of these. This is just one example where the headline read, Texas AI centers guzzle 463 million gallons. Now residents are asked to cut back on showers. Well, you break down the numbers, and it turns out the data centers only added 0.005% to Texas's water demands. So that would be the equivalent of a scare headline saying, oh my God, 1,600 people moved to Texas. Now residents are being asked to take shorter showers. In other words, there are a lot of other factors that are affecting water shortages, or, the relative scarcity of water in the state of Texas. The article goes into a lot of other things. It is ridiculous to be building data centers in Phoenix, Arizona, or probably anywhere in the state of Arizona. I mean, that's just absurd. But it's what his argument is. Well, yes, but why do we even have Phoenix anyway? All the uses of water in Phoenix are ridiculous. Why do we have a big industrial center there where water is so scarce? It didn't even make any sense to be building there in the first place. So if you just single out data centers, he's basically saying that's really, I think, a false analysis. You have to look at, where does it make more sense to locate industry in general, where water is needed? Why would you possibly cite something where water is scarce? It doesn't make any sense. So anyway, there's a lot more to this. He also would disagree with the pollution problem. He doesn't talk about the noise pollution problem. I think I'd have to agree with Johnny on that one. But I guess my overall message would be not that there isn't an environmental problem with data centers and the growth of AI and the attendant problems of all the electricity, the demand on electricity that this will require. I'm not saying it is not a problem, but that some aspects of the problem may have been exaggerated. And I think that, to me, a far greater problem are the uses to which AI are being put. And I suspect Johnny would agree with me on that one.
I would meet you at the middle really quick with the fact that I think we could still have data centers, but they should be in the middle of nowhere. And they're going to have to figure out how to cool them without taking fresh water,
Yeah. Well,
Perfect.
they can air cool them, but the problem with that is then you're using more electricity. And then so the electricity needs water. In most cases, water is used to drive the turbines and so on. So yeah, it's kind of a difficult problem to grapple with. But those are the right questions, though, that we need to be looking at and the way of analyzing it.
Yeah, I'm wondering what I need a data center for. So like if there's a difference of opinion about the environmental impact. What solves that for me is if I don't need one, I don't need to have that debate at all. So I'm not sure why I need a data center.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, the compute processing can be beneficial. I mean, presumably for all sorts of medical purposes and advancement in general. Technological advancement highly depends on compute. So, I mean, that's kind of why you need it. But ultimately, you specifically, it would be like that whole trickle down situation, and I don't know if it really trickles down very fast, especially considering the downsides of what they've been doing. I mean, they use AI to discriminate against people based on health things that are not recorded. So they scrape the web, obviously, and they find out that, oh, these people are having these issues. You know, they have access to OpenAI data, all the ChatGPT chats, stuff like that, and they use that to aggregate and build those profiles. And, oh, this person had an issue, but it wasn't recorded. They didn't go to hospital, didn't go to a doctor, but we suspect with high probability that they have this health issue, and so they get discriminated against. So it so far, I don't know if the positives yet outweigh the benefits. I mean,
I guess I would look at the whole COVID fiasco, at least that's the way I view it, since data was out in March of 2020 that showed who was at risk of dying, and it never changed at all. And which is why I knew I didn't need a vaccine as a middle-aged smoker, because I wasn't at risk of dying or being hospitalized. So AI only takes, as far as I understand, it doesn't go above human knowledge, which we can't measure anyway. But for argument's sake, I would say that it takes human knowledge and it extrapolates from there, and it's not terribly innovative yet. Maybe it will be. I don't see how it will be. I've never seen the math on that. I would be intrigued to see the math on that if anyone actually had it, rather than just making arguments, we'll get there. Actually quantify it and show me how the math will surpass human knowledge. So then if you look at the health industry and the fact that we spend more money than any other country, and yet we have these horrible health outcomes, I can't see how, once again, I would benefit in any capacity, or most people. So like the mob or the plurality of a country would benefit from this technology. The data center under the current systems, and you had noted health, which is already a cluster, and I'll leave out the second word I was going to use. I don't know how, when you have a horrible system as it is, you would improve upon it by taking the collective of human knowledge that we called experts during COVID that got so many things wrong, and would find a better solution.
Well, let's turn, and I'm gonna take precedence here. I want to call on two people who I believe are, if not AI fanatics, then AI heavy users. And I'd like to turn first to our new friend Katie. Katie, I think you found some interesting uses for AI to help you learn things you haven't maybe known before. Tell us a little bit about why you think it's valuable. And then we'll turn to our friend Denise, who I know has an opinion on this.
Yeah, of course. So I'm a college student, and as a college student, I use AI for nearly everything that I do. If I had to estimate, AI alone today probably saved me 2 or 3 hours. I was making a spreadsheet for our campaign, and it made a spreadsheet that looked absolutely beautiful in about 2 to 3 minutes, and it would have taken probably 2 hours of human labor to just, maybe not 2 hours, 1 to 2 hours of human labor to make it look good and everything to work efficiently. One thing that I have for the people debating, how much of an efficiency gain do you think in the future AI will bring? From my point of view, I think we're looking at historic levels of efficiency gains going forward, and those efficiency gains would then turn into energy efficiency gains, making our systems better. Basically, everything around us would work better.
So, Casey, with your permission, I'll answer at least a portion of it. And then this is a great question to ask. I balance efficiency with economy. And efficiency means being able to do something and do it much faster or with less resource or whatever. Economy would say, do I need to actually do it at all? Because the most efficient thing is to do nothing. So the question is, does AI making it easy, or at least seemingly easy, for me to do something that I couldn't have done before, help me avoid asking, well, is there a faster way? What if I didn't have that at all? Right? And so there's a certain, as a programmer, there's a certain laziness that comes in by saying, well, I can just have the machine write my database query for me, and it will do something. However, it does that at the expense of me thinking, well, do I even need to query the database here? That's not an answer for you, but the efficiency that can be gained has to be balanced against, are we doing things that we didn't have to do anyway, because now we can. Denise, I think you have a unique perspective on this because you've been thrust into a position where you didn't know what needed to be done, and you needed to use AI to help you interpret a brand new job that you couldn't have done maybe without it.
Right. I've been using it a lot to help me understand the intricacies of QuickBooks Online in my accounting job, because I'm not an accountant, and it's like having an accountant in your back pocket. So I'm able to do all these complex accounting things and keep everything in order. And the other thing that I was using it on was mostly as a time saver, was understanding campaign disclosure laws and campaign finance laws, because those laws, and I have read through the Campaign Finance Act in Illinois, and it's a hard thing to get through. The legalese, and it's just a mess to try to get through it. And so when I need to know something, rather than trying to spend a whole day looking through that document to try to find what I need, it's so much quicker just to go upload the document to AI and tell them, this is my question, and tell me what statute answers this particular question.
So a question for both Casey and for Denise, and then we'll open it back up. Denise, it sounded like you just replaced an accountant and a lawyer because you were able to use AI. Casey, you replaced a spreadsheet expert with AI and solved that. I wonder if you've given any thought to how the accountants and lawyers and spreadsheet experts feel about the fact that you don't need them anymore, theoretically.
Can I jump in here on that? Because they are still needed. You know, Denise, first of all, I've worked with Denise on a lot of this stuff, and it is, what she says is true, but you have to be very careful, because remember, Denise, there was that incident where the AI assumed that a law had been passed when it was still just a bill.
Right. When you're working with AI, one of the things you do have to be cognizant of is that it's not 100% accurate. So you always have to, trust and then verify.
Right. And we've had, in the legal profession, we have had, I had a CLE session where it was pointed out some lawyers have gotten in some pretty big trouble using AI, because some of these AI applications have made up cases. And the lawyer didn't realize, and he files something, saying there's this authority saying this, and it was just completely made up. Right. So you have to be real careful. So there is a lot of this potential, but boy, we're not at a point where we can really trust it to do a lot of these things. Now, on the other hand, I wanted to address Casey's point, because you're talking about positive potential. What if, for example, AI was able to accelerate our ability to use fusion energy, right, and solve that problem? So we can have, commercially viable fusion reactors and have a limitless supply of energy. Well, there goes the energy problem. We've just solved it using AI. So you have to be thinking about that as well. It's a very, very complex subject, trying to sort all these different things out.
In the previous discussion we had on AI, we talked about the negative effects on the fact that we're dumbing ourselves down by not exercising our own neural networks. At my age, I feel like I've already developed mine, so I'm not worried about the loss. But for someone young like Casey, I would be concerned that over relying on it too much prevents him from developing his own faculties to the greatest extent that they could be developed.
So Casey, now you got two to answer for. The first, how do you feel about replacing the spreadsheet guru? And the second, how do you feel about the atrophy of your synapses? Is that true or is that bunk?
I'll start with the atrophy. There is definitely some truth to it if you rely on it too much, if you let AI do everything for you. But it's a great learning tool. Just today I had a midterm and AI, I only had to study for maybe a quarter, maybe half of what I actually would have just 2 years ago because of AI. It was extremely helpful. And it's really, it's up to the person, just as if anything else is. It's what you make of it. And then on the job loss thing, I do think going into the future, it'll be difficult to keep as many jobs as we do in each field. AI is really good at mathematics and coding. Those jobs, for example, might be cut by 50%. My vision is that people will have maybe more independent income routes if we're using AI. If AI is so powerful that you can be a lawyer, that you can do all these different things, you can have a spreadsheet expert all at the same time, then you have more opportunity as a person, as an independent person, to own your own business or to create your own income. And I think that's something maybe that not a lot of people talk about. We've had technological change for centuries upon centuries. The Luddites in the 1800s in England, they saw that the factory machines were going to take their jobs, and so they rioted. And then 5 years later, their jobs were back. Everything was all right. And then things kept on getting more efficient. Quality of life kept on improving.
I heard the word learn and I thought of the college experience, and I guess I'm trying to understand what you mean by the word learn. Do you mean a professor asks you to parrot back some information and you were able to do that more efficiently? Because that just sounds like propaganda to me.
I think learn is to understand a concept and to be able to apply that concept. And what I think AI is really especially good at is if you get information, so you're looking at a textbook and the professor is the expert on that textbook, right? Before, you would have to go to the professor to talk to the professor about the textbook, but now with AI, you could give the AI the textbook and say, hey, this is the information that I have. Can you explain this? I don't understand this or that. And it's extremely good. It's accurate. We talked about AI is not 100% accurate. Well, humans aren't 100% accurate either. So you have to think about that. Can you trust every single human? Probably not. And yeah, I see it as a total net positive as long as it's used correctly.
But your premise was that your professor was an expert, and I don't know how you arrived at that conclusion. And that kind of begins the whole thing, is to declaring that AI is effective by skipping what your professor, who has arbitrarily decided that he's an expert in this field. Well, I would suggest, I don't know the difference exactly yet between an expert and a master propagandist, depending on the subject matter, that I don't know how it benefits me to take this environmental risk with data centers and AI and the atrophy to my brain to be able to be more efficient at parroting back information to somebody who is going to give me a reward, as in a grade or a degree, to go into a field where I just once again use the skills that they've said are important that I haven't decided myself.
Well, it sounds like you're concerned about the professor, not quite the AI. The AI is taking in loads of information from all corners of books, of the internet, of opinions. And so AI is really kind of the great moderator or equalizer, because it is taking in lots of different information. I don't know, what are your thoughts on that?
Does it tend to go towards the status quo, or does it tend to go towards that which is always innovative, which is never the status quo?
That's a great question. I mean, it's hard to answer. It probably depends on the topic, but from the research that I've seen, AI tends to take a centrist position on a lot of things. Maybe I can look into that some more.
So to me, I guess that's my concern is not so much the professor. It's tied together to me. It is the establishment university concept, and it's also the fact that I believe innovation has kind of been stifled by this. And my concern is that AI is going to make that even greater, especially when people rely on it and believe that it's expedient. What you're going to see is very little innovation. If you go back through the years and you study, not through a professor, but the variances in how people were innovative and even technologies came about, most of those people did not follow the status quo. So if you were relying on information from something that is dependent upon the status quo and searches the entirety of what is digital, only digital, because there is a gap there. There's a lot of knowledge that is not digital. And it says this is the status quo, therefore this makes this right. I have a concern that you're going to remove a lot of innovation.
Yeah, I would just say I somewhat agree about learning. If it's a very objective, a very objective question. So when it comes to like coding, and you ask like, what does a map do? You could look this up in documentation, like how do you map this object or map this array? But it's very good at giving that objective answer and looking up the documentation for you and giving that. But as a software engineer for 16 years, what I've seen is an explosion in vulnerabilities in software. It's could be considered a nuclear explosion, because there's already been billions lost and billions of dollars lost because people have exposed information, credit card information, all this other stuff, because the AI just it opens up all these new cybersecurity vulnerabilities when vibe coders don't actually know what they're doing. Now, it's not to say that it can't improve and it can't deal with that. It can't. These large language models cannot reach human level intelligence, and like we're talking about the mean, it is trained on the mean, and the vast majority of people can't build a secure application, and vibe coders have really it changed the whole tech industry quite a bit. So like one of my former colleagues, who together we built the entire platform for a GPU cloud. which happens to run AI inference. He's now working at another cloud company that specializes in AI inference, and they replaced a bunch of engineers with people from another country who are incapable of doing anything without using the AI. And they take a smaller salary. So while he makes a 300K salary, each of them makes a 100K salary, and they rely entirely on AI. And if it was taken away, if Claude was gone, they wouldn't be able to do anything. And that's kind of what's happening in the tech industry. Is the mean is becoming the new software engineer, and it really just kind of elevates the lowest to punch above their weight, whereas the top software engineers are left with having to review the code and fix the problems that they've introduced, and there's just a huge explosion of cybersecurity issues, and there's a whole lot to. I'm not going to waste everybody's time, but there's a whole lot to go on.
So
about
the
this.
end of exceptionalism in tech, it sounds like what you're forecasting, Johnny. It's an interesting thing.
Thank you, Casey, for coming forward and speaking. It's very refreshing. So high five for that. And also, I just wanted to point out something that Casey said that I thought was really important, was that he said you learn, but then you apply it. So in applying it, he's testing it out in real life. Is that right, Casey?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I would also say that you have less time learning and more time applying, more time doing the real stuff.
Yeah, and you can say, hey, does this work? Does it not? How can I change it? And then you come into a space like this, you bounce it off of Johnny with the tech background, you get that angle, and then you have Mike asking, right, more of his questions and the historical standpoint, right? So this is good, right? This is a nice mix here. So nice. Cool, guys.
That's a great way to end it up. And for those who are new and those who are old, the fact that we can do this each week, and everybody knows that sometimes we have to take positions that are not ours, it forces us to learn. And it's the truest meaning of healing the divide. So with this in mind, here is our next debate topic, maybe. What are we doing next week?